Hey guys, it's DC here, and today I want to talk about mental health. The reason for this conversation today is about a tweet I read the other day that was from Lindsay Gibbs, and it said, "Stop glamorizing the grind and start glamorizing getting 7+ hours of sleep at night, having healthy relationships, feeling safe at work, taking sick days, being paid a living wage, working hard when you're at work, boundaries, and self-caring your way to success." And this really got me thinking. It really sort of changed my perspective for a quick minute, where previously I've sort of been promoting this massive grind effort to get things done, with a little bit of, take your time, you're only young, and maybe you should focus on what you're actually having fun with in life instead of just getting certifications and experience and learning about all of these different things that, sure, they are important, but is it worth sacrificing your life for? Now, in before someone says I'm having a midlife crisis, I'm not quite old enough for that yet, but it is definitely something that gets asked fairly often. It's usually tied in with things like imposter syndrome and just, basically not being good enough. And I have to admit, it does get me down pretty often hearing all these stories from people who are far younger than me, usually like half of my age, saying that they are absolutely burnt out. They've been trying to get this certification, they've been on it for like 14 hours a day, like just mental hours, putting into learning these technologies to then potentially get thrown back by a recruiter, which, don't get me started on that rant again, because they don't have the certain amount of experience that they can't actually get. It's that whole chicken and the egg situation. So how do you keep your mental health in a time that is pretty trying and also demanding in these different aspects all at the same time? How do you keep it going? I'll tell you how I cope with getting down and getting things done and staying on top of my work while also living what I think is a fairly healthy lifestyle. And this is going to go against a little bit of what Lindsay said on Twitter, but I think it's fairly important to get my own opinion out there on how I've coped with different things and my own mindset towards these sort of situations that can definitely get you down. The first thing I always do to stay on top of my own tasks and life is to put everything in a calendar. And I mean everything. This might sound like something that's absolutely ridiculous, and maybe it is for you. I don't know, but it works for me. I put things down like lunch breaks and exactly what time I'm going to finish. Me and my partner share a calendar where I can see what she's doing during the day or night or whatever, so I can know how to plan things after work or on weekends. And also because I tend to forget everything that's been put in front of me unless I have it written down. I don't know if this is just because I've now become reliant on this calendar after using it for so long, but highly possible. The point here is that from 8 o'clock until 12 I'm working. That's my work bracket. How hard I work in that bracket is pretty much up to what tasks are on for that day. So it's hard to control how busy you're going to be, but it's certainly worthwhile pacing yourself during your time when you are working and not just going full on at it, because you will definitely get burnt out. I then set myself a lunch break, and the lunch break is usually somewhere between half an hour and 1 hour. I find half an hour just enough to get through lunch. 1 hour is enough to sort of calm down and chill out. And I'd never eat a massive lunch. It just doesn't, well, not when I'm working anyway, because the more you eat, the slower you get, essentially. And I just don't like that sluggish feeling of the after lunch blues, right? Where you're at work and you're like, I'm so full, now I'm tired. And mixing in things like alcohol during the day, which I know might sound surprising for some of you who know me, is a bad choice. I've gone down that route too many times and had boozy lunches and all the rest of it, and it never works out well. I always end up just being tired and getting nothing done in the afternoon, and then having more to do the next day, and then having to pace myself and change all of my calendar appointments that I had on. So the calendar is pretty much my savior to how I organize my work life and my personal life. Now onto things like imposter syndrome and trying to tackle that you're just not good enough. I'm pretty headstrong in those sort of areas, so it's hard for me to relate with people who say that they don't think they're good enough, because in my mind, nobody's really good enough. it's not a case of I'm not good enough. I kind of know there is no one out there who is perfect. And that's pretty much what gets me going through it. If I feel like at one point I'm like, I'm just not smart enough for this, or I just can't do it, I just think like, well, someone else has passed it and maybe they are good enough. But there's heaps of people who didn't pass it, and are they not good enough, or did they just not try hard enough to do it? I think anything is achievable when you put yourself in the right sort of mindset. And if you have enough knowledge on a certain topic and you can talk about it and push yourself to learn about it a little bit, then yes, you are going to be good enough. Do you have to be the best at something? Absolutely not. I hate being the best at things. In fact, if I could choose to be the best pen tester in the world or somewhere in the mid-range, I would absolutely choose the mid-range. Apart from that, talking yourself up makes you sound like a jerk. It's just pretty lonely at the top, I feel. Like if someone was so good at something that everyone else below them was just below them, wouldn't that make you feel like shit? I mean, everyone else is going to feel like shit knowing that this guy's amazing and that he thinks less of everyone else and whatever. I know this is like a really big mindfuck, but there is a point to all of this. There is a point to trying something even if you're not good enough, because you will still learn from it. I don't know if that's a famous quote by someone or if I just pulled it out of my ass right now, but it is something that I truly believe in. And there is also nobody who is absolutely perfect in the world, who knows everything. They don't exist. Now, often when people get you down about being not good enough, if it's coming from the other side and not from yourself, that's usually from something called jealousy. Maybe they see that you are trying so hard and that you are being successful, or maybe that you have tried so hard and you're not getting to where you want to be, and maybe they're in a similar situation, but by putting you down makes them feel better. That's something that happens fairly often, you'd be surprised. But at the end of the day, you just need to stay in your own spotlight and push yourself forward to be a better person at whatever it is you're doing. An example of this actually for me is when I first started learning to drive. And I know it's such a normal thing, right? Everyone can drive. When I first started driving, I thought in my head I was like the Michael Schumacher of driving, right? I thought I was the best of the best. Turns out I was terrible. When I first got into a manual car, I had to learn how to drive manual because it was the only option around at the time. There was no one I knew had an automatic car. So I had to learn how to drive a manual car. I jumped in, I thought, I'm ready to go. I'm going to be the best there is. And I stalled, of course. And I stalled, and I stalled, and I kept stalling. I almost had a few accidents stalling at intersections and just stalling on the intersection and people having to screech to a halt to not hit me while I'm stuck there trying to put the car back into gear and get it started again. It took me ages and I wanted to give up so badly, and I remember my dad just said, just keep trying, you're gonna get it eventually, and once you get it, it's just like riding a bike. And I thought, well, riding a bike's not really that hard, is it? I mean, I know how to ride a bike. How hard could it be to drive a car? I mean, my mum can drive a car. And I'm not saying my mum's a bad driver, just at the time I thought I was much better at everything than she was. Typical teenager things. So yeah, I eventually kept trying, I kept doing it, and I got it. I learned how to drive, I got my license in the first go, which I was pretty happy about, and I've been driving for probably longer than most of you have been alive. Which brings me on to the point that persistence is key, but in moderation. Now, while doing something over and over again is great, it's not the only way to learn something. It's also a very quick step to burning yourself out if you do something too much. So repetition in moderation is pretty much a motto that I live by. It's how I learned how to play guitar. It's how I learned how to touch type. It's how probably everyone learned how to touch type. It's how I got through my CCNA and my CCNP. I poured over those books constantly. I just kept reading them and reading them and reading them. I did the online coursework a few times over just to make sure I had it stuck in my head. And I passed the certifications and I was over the moon when that happened. Repetition in moderation is a very, very powerful thing. So now if you put them all together, for example, you have wake up at 7, get stuff done, go to lunch at 12 and you have this 5 days a week, your body clock is going to tune into it and you're going to start getting pretty relaxed on this timeline. Now, one thing I know though is that for me, routine is something that I'm not a big fan of, but during my day-to-day life, routine is perfectly fine. It's routine in things like your relationships that can cause massive problems, where life just essentially gets boring. And this is another topic that I will get to another day, where people are now sort of having their jobs for a short amount of time and then they're getting bored. I'm definitely a victim of this myself. But yeah, I hope this video sort of helps you to put your own mind in the right sort of frame of maybe not being successful, but just getting things done in moderation, using repetition and things like calendars to aid you with your day-to-day life, and basically just don't care about what everyone else thinks. I saw a quote ages ago. It was something along the lines of everyone is living in their own spotlight, but everyone's individual spotlight includes everyone around them. The only thing is, if you're thinking about people outside your own spotlight who are potentially taking over your spotlight, then there's a problem there. You should just be focusing on yourself and not worrying about what other people think. I wish I knew where that quote was. It was absolutely brilliant, and it said it so much better than I ever could. But yeah, I hope the point got across to you guys, and I hope this sort of makes some sort of sense. If you did enjoy this video though, please do give me a thumbs up and help the channel. It definitely helps with the thumbs up. Subscribe for more. Become a member if you want. Jump on my Discord server and have a chat with me. I'm always happy to have a chat and give you some motivation if that's what you need. And I'll see you all on the next video. Catch you later.